All right, well, let's get into it, guys. We've welcome to, another episode of whatever this podcast is called. You guys know it. You clicked on it. You are one of the lucky 7 people to listen to the thoughts of me, Ben Dailey. I would sarcastically say something along the lines of consider yourselves lucky you're listening to a genius, but I, you know, I guess I did say it, but I just even saying that sarcastically sounds insane. So, thanks for listening to the podcast of an insane person. That's me, Ben Dailey. Here we are. It's another day, another week. 2024 is flying by. It's pretty wild that we are already in April. Spring is here, although it's kind of cold. Well, it's been nice. It's Colorado, typical Colorado, cold, hot, snow, sun, little rain. I'm just going to name all the weather patterns. That's what this podcast is going to become. It's no longer the weekly daily, it's just the weekly weather report from Ben Dailey. This isn't a podcast. This is just my audition tape to the local weather station. To go, hey guys, I'm not good with a green screen. I don't really know how to point out temperatures, but I have held a microphone and talked about the weather. So, do you need somebody who can sit crisscross applesauce on a couch and just ramble about Colorado weather? That's me. I'm your guy. How much you paying? Not much? Perfect. That's about how much I'm worth. Not much. Anyways, it's, I'm excited to be here. I'm off on a hot ramble already, whatever that means. I was going to say, as I started recording this, as I hit that record button, I'm like a month back on coffee. And, I hate to say it, but I feel like after about 2 or 3 weeks, the feeling, the euphoria, the high of the coffee kind of seemed to go away. Now, the listeners out there, the viewers, you guys watching, you're probably like, no, sounds like you've had too much coffee, Ben. Maybe. That could be, you might be correct. But I don't feel like that kind of euphoria, that buzz. I don't know. The way I'm describing it, it sounds like I'm doing drugs, which coffee technically is caffeine. But I don't know if it's because I've been like a little low on sleep or if I don't know. I've been trying to wait like an hour and a half before having the coffee because in the past I'll like get up, have coffee right away, and they say if you wait a little bit, it doesn't spike the cortisol level. I don't know. It doesn't do something, or it does do something, and so I'm trying to drink it appropriately, but I don't know. It's who knows. But it's got a lot to talk about this week. Actually, it's been a busy week in all facets, in the comedy department, in the life department, in the diet department, um in all the departments, guys. The department stores, the department heads, very busy. And I'll start off by telling you guys, yeah, let's go back into the diet. I know you guys have missed the diet talk. Used to talk about that all the time. I'm on the Whole30 diet this month. Doing the Whole30 diet. Doing the Whole30 diet with the girlfriend. We're doing 30 days, April 1st to the 30th. I guess that's how it works. I don't know how many. Let me look at my knuckles. How many days does April have? January, February, March, April. 30 days. Do you guys do that? Use the knuckles? Isn't that crazy that the knuckles is like, that's how, do you guys do that? To tell if it has 30 or 31 days? Like you start at the inside of your, or I guess it doesn't really matter. It's all the same pretty much, but you start at the inside here at the knuckle, and the knuckle is 31 days, but then the little valley in between the knuckles is 30 days. So January 31, February, that's the outlier. That's 28. Unless it's 29, one every 4 years. And then March is 31. April is 30. And then when you get to May, June, July is 31. And then so is August, I guess. That's crazy. Whoever made the months must have just been looking at their knuckles and just gone, that's the way it's going to be. But yeah, doing Whole30 this month. And if you're not familiar, it's basically, I guess it's considered like an elimination diet. I've already been eating pretty healthy, as I've talked about in the past. Pretty raw food type stuff, non-processed foods, a lot of organic stuff. But the Whole30 is, because it's like more of an elimination diet, it cuts out a lot of things that I actually have been having. So dairy, like cheese and heavy whipping cream, things like that, are not allowed on Whole30, nor are most carbs, including oatmeal, which I've been having, or oats, which I've been having quite a bit of. No sugars, which, well, certain sugars. You can have fruit, but I've been having honey in my tea and in my oatmeal. No honey allowed, so honey's gone. What else has been a big adjustment? Butter, no butter. I guess that's dairy. No peanut butter. Can you believe that? I guess peanuts are a big allergy thing. I don't think it's an issue for me, but so instead of peanut butter, I paid $157 for a jar of almond butter because that's apparently how much almonds are worth nowadays. That's why, you go negotiate for jobs and they're like, how does $24 an hour sound? And it's like, okay, do you think an hour of my time is worth one jar of almond butter? Is that how little you think of me? I'm going to start doing that. Just relate everything to my value to a jar of almond butter. I don't know if you guys have seen almond butter. Insane. I'm not kidding. I mean, 24, a little high. I've bought 2 jars of almond butter in the last week. One was $17, and the other was like the Whole Foods brand, and it was like $13. That's insane, dude. How are people... Dude, if you don't have a lot of money as a parent and your kid is like affected by allergies, you just got to be like, look, you're just going to swell up sometimes, okay? Do you know how expensive alternatives without peanut oil and peanut butter and peanut traces? It's like, look, man, you're just going to swell up a little bit, okay? You're just going to have to breathe through a very small neck sometimes. And that's just what it is, because Mommy and Daddy, that's a weird. Mommy and Daddy don't have enough money to pay for all the organic stuff. It's crazy. The prices, if you want to eat organic, not even organic, but just like natural, it doesn't even have to be organic. But you look at the amount of stuff in the stores, like if you go get nuts or if you go get peanut butter, almond butter, all this stuff, it's like, just give me the peanut butter where it's ground up peanuts, or the almond butter that's ground up almonds. Same with pastas. It's like, just give me the brown rice, flour, and water combination. Why do you have all these food colorings and caramel color and sugar and canola, all these oils? It's like, dude, just give me the natural thing. And it's hard to find. And when you do find it, they're like, hey, guess what? It's 4 times the price of the one that we put in the caramel color, whatever that is. Caramel color with a U in the color. Okay, this is America, and when you throw U's in words that aren't supposed to be there, I think about the American flag. Okay, I think about the 50 states. Gets me riled up when that British propaganda gets into our grocery stores. You know what I'm saying? Not really. I could care less. I can't spell hardly at all. I'll look at a thing like that and just go, I don't. Does color have a U in it? Maybe it does. Maybe for 35 years I have been misspelling colors and misviewing colors. I'm good at that too. I'll see something and be like, that's gray. And people will be like, that's blue. I'm like, yeah, that's all right. Well, who needs to know colors? It looks gray to me, and that's all that matters to me. I'm surprised, that's going to be the next thing, colorblind. colorblind is going to be offensive moving forward. Because nowadays, you can pick your gender, you can pick your identity. I said that sounded weird. Your identity. You can, like, even though reality is one thing and like facts are one thing, you'd be like, nope, I feel this way and that's what I am. I should be able to do that with colors. Be like, that's gray. And somebody else be like, no, that's actually red. You're colorblind. I'll be like, no, it's gray to me. And I'm triggered now. I'm very offended. Okay. It's gray. And you will give me a 100% score on this kindergarten color test that for some reason I'm taking at the age of 35 years old. A real Billy Madison experience. Which, by the way, that funny movie, that would be insane. If I were to go back to and just hanging out with kindergartners through high school, I mean, that would be like not allowed. That would be totally not allowed. Not only would it be not allowed, but if somebody were doing that, I mean, could you imagine? You just get beat up by every parent every day. Just being like, what are you doing here? But I digress, guys. I know I said that I don't feel the effects of coffee, but as I speak into this microphone, I may see the effects and hear the effects of coffee. Maybe I don't feel it in my heart, but I feel like you guys sense it, and I sense it too. The sixth sense, the sense for coffee in Ben's system. But yeah, I'm bouncing around. This is going to be a real bouncy house of an episode. But doing the Whole30 diet this month, so it's basically just all natural foods. There's actually a lot of, not just with the Whole30, but all diets. There's a lot of alternatives you can use to just make stuff tasty and delicious and really very good. For example, I did meal prep. So at the beginning of the week, what have I been eating? I've been eating pretty much the same stuff I've been eating, minus the oatmeal and minus peanut butter, I guess. But last night I meal prepped and got a chuck roast and made a Mississippi chuck roast, which there's a child yelling outside my window right now. I don't know if you can hear it. Can you hear it? I'm going to go full grandpa. I'm going to knock on the window and say, shoo, child. I have a podcast with single-digit numbers of listeners that you are running. Okay. She ran away, I think. But yeah, I made a Mississippi chuck roast, which I guess is like it's in its typical unalterated form is a chuck roast, which is like a big beef roast. I don't know what part of the cow that is. And then it's like ranch seasoning and au jus sauce, I guess it is, and then peppercini peppers. And the Whole30 way of doing it is basically just the chuck roast and then some beef broth, pepperoncinis, and then you make your own like ranch seasoning, which is really easy. It's basically just like onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper, and like dill seasoning or dill. I think we just got the dill natural spices. And made that. And we'll see how many meals. I mean, it's so good. It is delicious. It's unbelievable. I mean, you eat it and you go, this is the biggest cheap meal I've ever had. And you're like, nope, that's actually totally fine and healthy. So made that, made some nice mashed potatoes, which also was a weird combo. Is like potatoes, and we use coconut cream and ghee, Ghee, which is clarified butter. It's a butter substitute. I don't know. Clarified butter, whatever that means. But apparently it's approved. And then some garlic, salt, pepper. I feel like we use something else, but that's, most of it. And it is so good. It's delicious. I split it up. My girlfriend and I meal prepped together and then made probably like 6 to 8 servings or meals, not including the 2 we ate last night for dinner. But we'll see. It's definitely one of those things where it's like you could split it into like 3 full meals and then just eat all 3 meals in one sitting because you're like, this is really good. But it's exciting to have that on the table, those extra options. So I'll keep you guys updated on the whole 30 moving forward. I just got to get my sleep schedule back in tune, back in touch, back in order. You guys do that? I feel like I just say you say like something close to the right thing, but it's not the right thing, but you can't think of the right thing. And you're just like, well, people get it. They know what I'm saying. But you just like say it wrong. So in my head I'm like, well, they get it, but also the more I think about it, when I say stuff like that, it's like, oh, people just think I'm dumb. And you know what? People aren't wrong. I'll tell you that. But yeah, doing the whole 30. It's been basically this last week. Was a busy week. I think I went out to. Did I go to an open mic? I did. Went to a couple open mics, I think. Starting on Mondays and Tuesdays, I've been taking off a lot. I'm trying to think even what I did on those days. Probably just stayed in. But Thursday went to an open mic out in Boulder. I was gonna do the double open mic. They have an open mic in Boulder at a brewery called Vision Quest, and they also have a open mic after that in Louisville, which is close to Boulder, at Louisville Underground. But they canceled it this last week, so didn't get to go to 2. But that's okay. Did the one mic. Haven't been to a lot of mics recently. Gonna get back into it. I've got a couple jokes that I'm working through that I'll talk about that I'm excited for. But gonna do it. Gonna go out tonight, get the reps in again, start working through some new material because my material currently stinks. Nothing good new coming out of my mouth or my brain or, any part of my body for that reason, wherever thoughts come out of, Do they develop in your brain? Do they develop in your toes? I don't know. I don't think scientists, have figured that out yet. But the thoughts are just not flowing wherever they're coming from. But did the open mic on Thursday. Got some good feedback. I went through a couple new ideas that are not really fully formed. One that I think I've talked about in past podcasts about walking out of a theater for the first time, leaving a movie. I'm going to change the setup a little bit, do a little white lie, which I don't like. Generally, I don't like, or I'm totally against making up stories or circumstances for jokes, but the joke itself, I think the core essence of the joke is still the same, which is I walked out of a movie because a weird thing happened. But the weird thing that happened as I was trying to explain it, I think is coming off a little aggressive and making people feel uncomfortable. So I'm just changing that to like a little different scenario that doesn't make people so uptight. So we'll see if that works. I'm going to try that out today. But yeah, I got good feedback at the Boulder open mic, aka people did not like the setup. So I will be changing that and trying out some different setups. But Boulder was fun. Went out there, got up pretty early, went home. And then the weekend was very busy. Friday, I did 2 shows. I did another retirement home in Loveland. So good buddy, very funny comedian in the scene, Sam Ellefson. He's been doing some retirement homes. He's on the retirement home circuit. He had a viral clip. He was doing like a show at a retirement home and did a joke about cursive, I think, and it's gotten like 500,000 or 1 million views. Went viral. A bunch of retirement homes reached out to him, and so now he's doing a bunch of those gigs, and he's asked me to open for him a couple times, which I've been excited to do. But when you're talking about retirement homes, or it's not even just retirement homes, but any sort of show whether it's corporate, retirement home, just any type of show that happens at the time that this show happened, which was 4 p.m., it's usually a toss-up at best. A lot of those shows are pretty not great. And the first retirement show that I did a couple weeks ago, which I probably talked about a couple weeks ago on the podcast, was pretty rough. I felt pretty sweaty underneath my shirt. Uh, but this one, so I go into this one thinking, it's probably going to be similar, hopefully better, but, it's probably just going to be like kind of a rough 20, 25 minutes. So we get there, we drive up there. Traffic was terrible, so we were like rushing to get there on time. So we rush in and we rush in. We rush in to Moscow. Get it? Russian. That was like a really bad dad joke, which I'm not really known for. But I'll throw some out there. I'll have a kid to say that it's truly a dad joke. I'll have a kid for the bit. I'll make it happen. But we rush in there, and it's like a 55 and up retirement home. So this one's much younger than the last one. They're not young people, but the last one I did was like average age like 85 or 90. This was 55 and up, and you saw a range of people from like 55 to 80 maybe was about the age range if I had to guess. And it was an interesting setup because we went in there, and they had like this big common area that had kind of like it wasn't like a traditional kitchen. It was kind of like a nice open kitchen where there's a big island, and then they had some kitchen stuff, but that was kind of at the very back, and then just kind of common seating area. So it didn't look, it might be considered kind of like a cafeteria, but honestly what it looked like was like if you were a really rich person and you had a very open concept living area to kitchen space where there was just a big island beside the kitchen, which was up against the wall, and then just totally open to like the living room area, seating area, with ceilings that are like, 20, 30 feet high. So that was kind of the setup. And then on the opposite end of the kitchen is where we performed. So the kitchen was in the very back, and it came up against like this little media room. And there was a curtain that separated the space from the media room to the kitchen room where all the audience members were sitting and like waiting for us when we got there. And it was funny because we set up behind the curtain, and the lady who was running the event was like, all right, you set up back here, and then when you're ready to go, you let me know, and I'll hit the button, and the curtains automatically retract, and then you can start. And I was like, wow, this is hilarious. This is like a miniature version of me doing like a big theater show where the curtain comes back. Except I say that in like a very sarcastic way because like the curtain comes back and you're like, hello, everybody in this large kitchen. Are you ready to hear some funnies? But that's what I did. It opened up and I was like, hey, Avenida Centera, or whatever it was called. I was like, how's everybody doing today? I think I said tonight too, which is always funny when usually shows are at night. So you say, what's up? Everybody doing all right tonight? And it's like 4 p.m. You're like, well, it's very sunny outside. It's not night yet, but you guys get it. But I did that and I was like, how's everybody going? I couldn't hear anything. And this has happened so many times when I start shows. I just laugh at it at this point. But the mic wasn't turned on. So I couldn't hear myself. So I was like, can you guys hear me? And they're like, no. And then I turned it on. And so just, it's always funny to start like that, where you like try to bring this energy and you're like shouting into a mic that's not on. And then you have to be like, oh, just kidding. Now we're starting. But the show was hot. I'll be honest with you. I was not expecting anything close to this. It was a very good show. They were there to have a good time. They were laughing. They were well behaved. Like some people interacted very briefly, but like in a very natural, organic, fun way. There was nobody that was, like heckling. A lot of times when you're doing comedy for, it's not just old people. It's just people who maybe don't watch a lot of comedy, which I guess to be stereotypical, if you go to a retirement home, if I'm stereotyping, I'm probably thinking these people probably haven't been or haven't been for a while to a comedy show. Now, is that me being judgmental? Yes. I don't know. Maybe all of them go to comedy all the time. But I just think based off of past experiences in front of crowds and kind of getting an understanding or vibe of what people know or don't know. I think a lot of times very old crowds or older crowds just haven't gone to comedy as much or at all. With that said, if people don't know, if they haven't been, sometimes people will try to participate or yell out, or they just don't understand like how comedy works, which is like one person talks, you listen, you laugh, which is, yes, you're right. It's a very, very self-centered, semi-narcissistic setup, but that's just what it is. And if that isn't what it is, then comedy becomes not comedy very quickly. But that was not the case here. People were great. They were into it. I was having a good time. I felt comfortable. I was doing all this stuff. They were laughing. I was like, dude, I crushed. And then Sam Ellefson went up after me. I did like 20 or 25 up top, and then he was doing like 35, 40 to close it out. And dude, he ripped so hard. I was in another room hanging out while he was going, and just the laughs were so loud. I was like, this is crazy. This is unbelievable. Honestly, it blew my mind a little bit. It was pretty fun. So did that show, and it was funny too, because the lady that set it up, we got there and she was like, yeah, so you can be like a little, like, it doesn't have to be PG clean, but like you can be a little edgy, but like don't go too much. Which whenever somebody says that, I'm just like, I'm going to keep it clean. If you say it doesn't have to be clean, you can be a little edgy, but don't go too edgy, then it's like, well, I don't know, unless you literally write out like specific words and topics that I can and can't say. It's like your definition of what you described could be completely different to every single person that you ask. Like, what's clean, what's a little edgy, but not too edgy. You're like, I don't know. So I kept it clean, and Sam went, it was for the most part clean, but there were like some parts that for 60, 70, 80-year-olds might have been a little edgy. Most people loved it. People were coming up to us after and they're like, I wish you would have gone dirtier. I wish you would have gone dirtier. We wanted to hear it. But then you had, a couple of people who were like, you guys, there's one lady who came up, she goes, you guys were bad. You guys were so bad, but I found myself laughing somehow sometimes. So she was like, you guys were saying crazy stuff. And I was like, lady, I did a PG set. I don't even know what that means. I'm bad. I was like, yeah, I did my work jokes about interviewing and me sleeping on a small bed, a twin bed. Was that bad? Was that too edgy for you? My PG humor? Should I have done Y7? Did you were like, I was expecting Goosebumps and you gave me Harry Potter. Yeah. Harry Potter was probably PG-13. I don't even know a PG film. You gave me, I wanted Goosebumps. You gave me Lion King. Which also, Lion King is probably better than Goosebumps. Goosebumps is scary. It was when I was 6 years old, okay? I watched it in second grade. I think I was 6. I think I was 7 in second grade. And we watched Goosebumps, and it was Y7, and I remember having the thought, I think I should call my mom to get approval to watch this, because I think it was a show that I was like, I'm not allowed to watch this at home, so it feels like we should get permission. But I don't think I did ask. If I would have asked that, I probably would have been made fun of for the rest of my life. So what can you do? Did that show, though. Very, very fun. I'm trying to think of other stuff with that show. Honestly, it was probably the most people who've come up with like very enthusiastic, encouraging things to say about how like awesome it was. People were coming up there like this was the best event they've ever had here. Stuff that, I understand. It's like, I'm not naive to think like, yeah, I'm incredible. This comedy show was incredible. It was a great show, but shows aren't always like that, and people don't always feel that way. But when they do, once in a blue moon, when you have those and they're just like, this was incredible, this was awesome, We would love to see you again. Just all the kudos. It does feel good. It does feel good. And it feels good to hear people that say, a lot of people were coming up and they were saying like laughter really helps us get through stuff. There was a lady who mentioned that her husband had passed recently, and how like important or how nice it was for her to do something that took her mind off that and allowed her to laugh for the first time since that had happened and connect with other people. And again, I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to be like, yeah, these dumb jokes I do are just like changing lives. But every once in a while, you do get that input and you do realize like, oh, this is, can be important. It's a very self-centered thing that we do because it's like, I am doing this for me. I want you to listen to me and laugh at me. But also, when you look at it from the bigger picture, sometimes you go, hey, this is fun that I get to do this thing that I love and I enjoy, but it also helps some people laugh and get through tough times. So that was pretty cool to see. It was a very fun show. Left that and went straight to another show in Lakewood, which is right outside Denver, at Locust Cider, which was a very fun show. I've done that a handful of times. It's a great room, run by Garrett Nygren, friend of the pod. Pallet City Comedy. He runs multiple shows and mics around town. And Locust Cider is, I not to disparage any other shows that he has, but I think it's consistently the best show that he has, and it's just a very good show. It fills out every time. People are down to laugh. It's a great time. I got to close that show out and do 15 minutes at the end, which was fun. It was interesting because as good of a show as Locust Cider is, consistently, and as good as it was that night, it you can definitely tell that people, not just at that show, but at any show, get more tired at the end, especially if it's a little bit longer show. So they were still good. They were into it, but they were a little tired at the end of the Locust Cider show. And so it was funny to do like a retirement home and expect to bomb, but have it go very well. And then be like, I think the retirement show was hotter than the Locust Cider show. Which again, the Locust Cider show was very hot. They were a little tired by the time I got up, but it was still a great show. But I'm just saying that to say that's how good the retirement show was, which was a big surprise. So did that. That was fun. I did, I guess I don't really have any stories from Locust Cider other than, yeah, it's always fun to do that. It's fun to close the show out. Had a good time. And that was Friday. Saturday, Saturday was a eventful day as well. It was good. I drove up with my girlfriend to Fort Collins and hung out with my brother for a little bit, and some other people. We watched the NC State Purdue game, I think. Watched a little bit of it, but hung out for a little bit, and then I was hosting a show, a Don't Tell comedy show up in Fort Collins at a lingerie store. It was my first time there. It was a very fun show. It's kind of this back room in the lingerie shop, which seats about 50 people. It's completely full. It's a very cool setup. It was very fun. It was an interesting show though, because of a couple things. Mostly because there was a heckler that I had to deal with, but I'll get into that in a second. But I went into the show, and speaking of coffee, I had a lot of coffee in the morning. I'm getting back into coffee, and I think I'm getting back too quick. Too quick into it. I gotta have like 1 cup, but I'm like immediately let's go to 2 cups, and I had maybe 2.5 cups in the morning, and then in the afternoon when I got up to Fort Collins, I got another coffee, and I was just like, I felt not good. I felt anxious and just like on edge, that cold sweats where you don't feel good. And when you have to host and check people in and have all these responsibilities, it just put me in like, it wasn't the end of the world. It just put me in kind of like a uncomfortable mindset. With that said, it was fine. Checked people in, The Don't Tell shows are almost always very good. So I wasn't too worried, but it's like a BYOB setup, which in the past has been totally fine. But, when people are bringing their own stuff, it can be easy for them to slam the drinks down. And that's what this guy was doing. Well, I'll start off. It's in the back. It's kind of like a cave-looking room. It's like a brick wall behind and then like an arch, so it looks like you're almost like not in a fireplace, but if kind of similar design to a large fireplace that you're performing under. And then the room goes back, and it's it's 50 people, so it's a pretty intimate little room. And so I start off my set, and I say like, the beginning of my host set, I always say the same thing. I go through the spiel of like, hey, if you're not familiar with the comedy show, during the show, please don't heckle the performers. If you need to go to the restroom or you grab a beer or whatever, don't hesitate to do that. But most important thing, let's have a good time. You guys think you can handle that? And usually they go, woo. And I go, come on, that's not enough. Do it again. And then they go, woo. And then I'm like, yes, I'm a host and I do the host duties. And then I started doing my jokes. And pretty soon into the jokes, after I'd already mentioned, don't heckle, some people are shouting out. And it was pretty apparent. They were kind of shouting out in a way where I was like, they're going to be a problem. I need to nip this in the bud. So they called out, and honestly, I don't even care. I could get better, and I'm sure I will get better. I feel pretty comfortable and confident with hosting right now. But when somebody is like obviously a problem or going to be potentially a big problem, trying to like fit that in like a funny, silly way, like it's possible, and I could certainly get better. But sometimes, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong for this, but I feel comfortable in my approach with it. When somebody is heckling, sometimes I just go, I don't want to make this funny. I don't know how to make this funny maybe, but I'm also okay not making this funny. I just need to let this person know, stop that. And that's exactly what happened. Like I did a joke and this guy like yelled out, and it was obvious like, okay, I think this guy's kind of drunk and this is probably going to be happening all the time. So I just said, hey, look, I kind of just stopped and was like, don't do that. Don't yell out. I was like, look, I already did a joke about not being confrontational. It pains me to do this. Don't do that. Like, don't do that. So it wasn't like this, it might not have been that smooth, but also it's just like, hey, I need you to know, as the host, my job is to try to set the show up for the other comics, or at least that's how I view it. And so I could feel the momentum. I lost some momentum there because, you build some tension in the room by like lecturing somebody to be quiet. But I was like, that's fine. If I build a little tension, as long as they know don't do that anymore, then I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable with that. So I did that, felt a little tension in the room, brought it back up with, my last couple jokes, brought the next person on, and then the next person comes on. And there were two people that initially kind of heckled that I addressed in my set. One of them, I think he got the message pretty much. He might have said something later in the show, but for the most part, he got it. It was the one guy who's sitting in the very front row that was like chirping at a lot of stuff. Now, I told him directly during my host set, don't do that anymore. But during the first person's set, he said like one thing, and she kind of like roasted him pretty well. She was like, okay, thank you, but never speak again, and got a pretty big laugh. And then for the next couple comics, I didn't really hear him interact. He might have a little bit, but it wasn't like enough of a problem to like really alert me to be like, this guy's over the top. But then about halfway through the show, a comic comes up, and I mean, it was just terrible. Like the guy was just shouting back and forth and really ruining momentum. And the comic on stage is very good comic. I mean, just professional comic. And he dealt with it great. But when a heckler is like doing that, it builds tension in the room where literally the crowd members are shouting at him to shut up. So it became very obvious at that point. It's like when I go on stage, it has to be addressed. And as a host, I haven't had to do this much at all recently, which is incredible because it's my nightmare. But it's also my job, so you got to do what you got to do. But generally speaking, if there's an issue going on, what I will do is I will approach it off stage. So I'll go up to them off stage while another comic's on stage and just go, hey, excuse me, you need to keep it down, please. Please don't heckle. But because of the small, intimate space and room, and this guy sitting in the front row, I didn't have the option to I didn't really have the option to go up to him. If I did, it would have been like a massive distraction and would have been just not a good scenario. So I was like, I have to tell him while I'm on stage, bring the next comic up, through the microphone. And so I go up there and I literally was just like, hey guys, we've got 2 comics left. You still having a good time? They're like, yeah. And I was like, all right, before I bring up your next comic, and I just pointed at the guy, I go, look, man, I don't have a joke for this. I'm not even trying to make this funny. You need to stop talking. Like, you're ruining the show for And then he goes, oh no, I'm just, and I go, you're doing it right now. I said, shut up. Shut up. And then he kept, I said, I literally was like, no. And I mean, that's it. It made it a little awkward, but like I said, it was such an obvious thing that needed to be addressed, and the audience hated this guy. So, they wanted me to address it. So even though, I'm not a confrontational person, it had to be said. And long story short, the guy was okay for the last 2 comics, but I was very anxious, all that coffee and having to deal with that, and then just waiting, sitting in the back being like, is he going to bust out again and say some stuff and heckle, and am I going to have to kick him out? But it was funny because it was a good show. It was a great show. That guy was very obnoxious. I'm sure he annoyed some crowd members, but I think all in all, it was a pretty hot room and a good time. But afterwards, an audience member came up and was like, I'm so sorry you guys had to deal with that, which already is funny because it's like, I'm sorry you had to deal with that as an audience member. You paid money to come here. I'm sorry that you had to see that and have that interrupt somewhat the show. But he was like, I want to pay you and have it split among the comics. And I won't say exactly the amount that he sent, but he sent more money via Venmo than I've ever received. Now, I split that and sent that to all the comics. But I was like, this is crazy. This guy was like, here's a ton of money for you having to do. I was like, yeah, it was crazy. It was kind of an interesting night. But it was very fun. Left Fort Collins, ate at Five Guys. I don't know if you guys know this, but Five Guys, you can get a Whole30 approved hamburger, lettuce wrap. You just get basically the burger with almost, I think, all the toppings. Maybe there's a couple that you can't get. And then you can get mustard that's approved, that's okay, with a lettuce wrap. And it was like, oh, dude, incredible. Very, very tasty. So had that. And then drove back home Saturday night. And it was very windy. It was very cold and windy. The wind gusts were crazy. And there's another weather report just to tie it back around to the beginning of the podcast where I just tell you guys about every day and the weather here in Colorado. But that was Saturday. Then Sunday, I usually have a pretty chill day, which it was a pretty chill day, but Sunday did that chuck roast in the crock pot like I mentioned, but also did a show. Did Sunday Fun Day again at Zeppelin Station. Did it probably about a month ago, but did it again mostly to help check tickets. The typical host wasn't there. He was celebrating WrestleMania, so he needed a real adult to take over his responsibilities so he could play with his action figures and wear a mask and watch TV, I guess. No, I don't know. The host, good friend. Wrestling, honestly, hearing him and other people talk about wrestling and how hyped up they get, it kind of makes me want to get into wrestling, although I know nothing about it. But when a friend of yours is really passionate about something, it does kind of make you want to get into it, or at the very least understand that passion a little bit more. But did that show. It was a 6 o'clock show. Pretty good turnout. It's it's at like 6 o'clock, and on a Sunday, crowds are generally a little more reserved or tight. I had fun. It was a somewhat of a tight show, but sometimes those are fun for me because then you just go up with like very loose energy because it's like these people need to be connected with. I can't just like two hands on the mic and just say the words to the jokes. Like you have to connect with them. So then it kind of puts me in a mindset of like, well, just go up with like an energy where I'm not trying too hard. I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable by like trying to make them laugh. It's like I'll just go up and be a real person, and if they laugh, they laugh. If not, like I just try to connect with them. And I felt like I did a pretty good job doing that. It was a fun time. And yeah, I mean, here we are. That's the week, guys. I don't know. Was this interesting? I talked briefly about who knows what, and then I went into comedy talk pretty quick. But came home Sunday. I'm redesigning. That's not the right word. Reorganizing my bedroom, changing the setup of it, trying to get rid of some stuff to free up some space, and then make it a little bit more adult-like. What does that look like? I don't know. I have things that I moved around, and I'm trying to get organized. Probably once a year I go through this where you just got a bunch of junk laying around, and then you get into that like not ADHD, OCD mindset of like I gotta sort stuff and get it organized. So I'm doing that, and it's I'm excited about the new room setup, and I'm excited about the next couple weeks. I got some fun shows, some fun hangouts, some fun activities, and I'm going to be working through new jokes, guys. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I will have some new jokes here soon that will be worth listening to. Or maybe I'll just have some words that I memorized that everybody hates. And that's likely, that we'll see. I'll let you know. I'll keep you updated on future episodes. But as always, guys, I'm going to end the episode there. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to me ramble. I appreciate it as always. Hope you guys enjoy your week, and I'll see you guys again next week.